Hi friends, it's Hannah and I'm so excited that you're with me today to create some art. Last week we talked a little bit about the artist named Georgia O'Keeffe who paints beautiful flowers, among many other beautiful things. And today we're going to learn a little bit more about Georgia O'Keeffe and create a beautiful flower painting as well. The book that we're reading today is called My Name is Georgia. And it shares the story of Georgia O'Keeffe starting from when she was a young girl and how she loved to do things her own way. And she really liked to be all by herself, which is part of what inspired her to create such beautiful work, spending all that time by herself out in the world and out in nature. It's a really special story and I'm excited to share it with you today. So let's get started with our reading. Georgia O'Keeffe was born on a farm in Wisconsin in 1887. When I was 12 years old, I knew what I wanted, to be an artist. I've always known what I wanted. When I was small, I played alone for hours and hours and hours. I was satisfied to be all by myself. I did things other people don't do. When my sisters wore sashes, I didn't. When my sisters wore stockings, I wore none. And when my sisters wore braids, I let my hair fly. I rode to town every Saturday to copy pictures from the stack in the art teacher's cupboard. At home, I looked out my window and drew pictures of what I saw. Maybe I could make something beautiful. At school in Chicago, I drew from statues in the museum. At school in New York, I painted one still life painting a day, every day. At school, I painted my teacher's ideas. But when school days were over, I went out into the wide world to discover my own ideas. I went to the Texas plains, the wild west of my childhood books. You have never seen sky. It is wonderful. I walked into the sunset. I felt the wind across the plains. And I painted the sunset and the sky and the wonderful loneliness and emptiness of the place. I painted day and night. I worked till my head all felt light in the top. I have things in my head that are not like what anyone has taught me, shapes and ideas. But I bundled up my paintings and went to New York City to be where the other artists lived. I walked down in the canyons of steel. I lived high up in the clouds and painted what I saw from my window. But sometimes what I saw from my window was the far away calling me. I painted a garden in the city. I wanted everyone to see flowers the way I saw them. I looked closely at flowers. I painted a camellia. I painted it big so people would notice. I painted a Jack in the pulpit. I painted it big so people would see. I painted poppies and petunias and sunflowers and jimson weeds and irises and apple blossoms. My garden bloomed until everyone saw the flowers the way I saw them. But still I looked to the sky. The distance has always been calling me. So I went to the New Mexico desert, so far away that no one ever comes. I was satisfied to be all by myself. It was too dry for the flowers to grow, but there were bones. I gathered the bones, big bones, little bones, short bones, long bones, a cow's skull, a horse's skull, a ram's skull, and brought the bones home to paint. One day I held one up against the blue sky and saw the blue through that hole. I painted what I saw. I saw the sky and the red hills. I walked in the hills at daybreak and twilight, at noon and in starlight. I painted the arms of two red hills, reaching out to the sky and holding it. I painted the Pedernal Mountain in the far away. I painted it over and over and over again, and then again and again. God told me if I painted that mountain enough, he'd give it to me. I drove my Model A across the desert and back, and up and down over the hills. I painted in my studio on wheels until the afternoon bees chased me home. Even in winter, I went out into the far away and painted in the bitter cold. I painted when the wind was so strong it nearly blew me away. I did things other people don't do. I climbed a ladder into the night sky to wait for the sun. I slept under the stars to see the morning sky when I woke. I stayed in the desert. My hair turned from black to gray to white as the bones. I still walked in the red hills. My pile of bones grew, my flowers bloomed in the desert, and the Pedernal was mine. And the sky, oh, it was still wonderful. I painted the sky one more time. I painted my sky big so people would see the sky the way I did. I worked from dawn to dusk every day for weeks and months. Then, as I painted the last cloud, the sun slipped behind the Pedernal. I laid my brushes down, kissed the sky for me. Georgia O'Keeffe lived to be 98 years old. In museums all across the land, people see her flowers, deserts, hills, cities, and skies the way she did. So, we learned today from our book that Georgia O'Keeffe would spend lots of time looking really closely at the flowers that she was going to paint, studying them close to figure out all of the tiny details, and then painting them really big so that people could see all of the things that she saw when she looked at the flowers. Today we're going to do a painting that's based on my favorite flower. These are called lupines, and they grow wild up in New England where I was born and grew up. So they're very special to me for that reason, but also they're really, really pretty. So I thought that we could look closely at some pictures of lupines today and then use our fingers to create fingerprint paintings of lupines. But as always, if you feel inspired to do something different than what I'm suggesting, you should go for it. I know that your grown-ups could pull up a picture of really any flower that you'd like to see on Google, and you can look closely at those images and create a painting of any flower that you like. Do you have a favorite flower? I'd love to hear about it. So just for today, for our purposes, we'll be talking more about lupines, which are usually purple, sometimes pink, or maybe even yellow. But the colors that I chose for today are pinks, purples, and blues. And I mixed them up on my paint plate so that I could use my finger to do the painting. If you have some colors in mind that you'd like to use, you can mix them up and create a little paint plate palette like I have, and that's a good way to start out this project, is to have all of your paint on a plate or on a palette in front of you. And that's how we'll begin. So I'm going to share a photo of a lupin with you now, actually many lupin, and I'm also going to recommend another story if you're interested in these flowers that we're talking about today, called Miss Rumphius. The book Miss Rumphius is by Barbara Cooney, and it's one of my very favorites. It's a great story, but also features lots of pictures of lupins if you want to check them out more. So, check out that book, and here's a photo of a lupin for you to look closely at before we begin. Okay friends, so other than the paint that we already talked about, in different shades of your choosing, today we're going to need a green marker to create the stems for our flowers, as well as some paper. So go ahead and grab all the things that you need and we can begin our painting together today. here is the finished product of my lupines. I looked closely at the lupines and realized that the tiny bulbs of the flowers look very similar to what our little fingerprints look like when we press them down on paper. So I put dots up and down each side of my stem to create some lupines. I hope you have a ton of fun painting flowers just like Georgia O'Keeffe. Remember to ask your grown-ups to send a picture of your finished product to me so that I can share you as our star artist of the week on one of our upcoming videos. I love hearing from you and seeing what you're up to, so please remember to send some stuff my way. And until next time, enjoy creating, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, my friends.